So once you've got all your sounds layered in your editing software, one of the trickiest parts of sound design is getting all of those layers to combine together in a way that sounds natural, but also in a way that you can hear every piece of it. So you've got all your layers of sound, you've got your music, you've got your voiceover or your dialogue. All of these pieces are all coming together and all playing simultaneously. And creating a natural soundscape is probably the trickiest part. You want to create a soundscape where nothing is louder than the other thing and nothing, everything's about the same level, but where you can still hear everything, where there's separation between all of the different sounds. And that's especially important when it comes to your voiceover or your dialogue. Nobody wants a voiceover or dialogue, the most important part of the audio, to be underneath the sound design or underneath the music where you can't really hear it. You want that voice to come through really clear and clean so that people can hear what they're talking about, so people can hear the dialogue, and that's really important. So I'm going to show you a trick here on how to do that using what's called a compressor. Now, what a lot of filmmakers will do, beginners will just basically take the voiceover and just make it louder. But you don't want to do that because you can cause problems with the audio clipping or distorting or other things like that you just don't want to deal with. And so using a compressor is a way that you can get that vocal track to kind of stand out on top of everything else without having to actually make it any louder. So I've got our project pulled up here. And as you can see, we've got sound design layered throughout this entire thing. On the first track right here is our music track. On our second track right here is our voiceover. And then everything down here below is all of our sound design effects. Okay, so I'm just going to play this little section of the video so you can see what it sounds like right now.
On November 5th, I'm running the New York City Marathon to raise funds for my mom and the Brain Tumor Foundation. And I'm counting on help from athletes from around the world to join in and donate to the cause.
Okay, so you can hear how we've got our music in there, we've got our sound design effects in there, we've got the voiceover in there, and it's sounding pretty good. We did a good job recording the voiceover, so it's crisp and clean, really nice. Good sounding voiceover. However, it is just a little bit quiet. There are elements or points where the music when the drums hit or it gets a little bit louder, it's kind of hard to hear him. It's not a real consistent volume level. You're always going to have that with dialogue, with voiceovers. You're going to have, there's parts where the person just talks louder or talks quieter. And as you can see, like if you look at your waveforms go like this. Okay, so they're up and down. It's a variety of volume levels that you're getting with a voiceover like this. And what a compressor is going to do is it's actually going to compress those waveforms and make everything be a more consistent volume level. So what you'll be doing is the compressor will actually take those peaks, okay, where it's loudest, and you'll tell the compressor, hey, when it's loud here, I want you to automatically make it a little bit quieter, which is going to make the whole thing quieter. And then you will increase what's called the makeup gain to make the overall track louder, which is essentially going to bring up the quieter parts and bring down the louder parts, which does this, compresses that audio track so that rather than getting a really large waveforms like this, you're getting more of a smooth curve like this. So let's show you how that works. So I'm going to select my first clip here. The effect that I'm going to use in Premiere Pro is this dynamics processing effect. Any editing software that you're using will have some sort of compressor effect, which will work exactly the same way. I just like this one because it's kind of a visual representation of what it's doing. So I think it's easier to understand if you haven't used a compressor before. Okay, so you're seeing a graph here, and this is kind of like a curves graph like you would use in color grading. Similar, I guess, in a way to doing that with color, but with audio. So what is happening here is we've got two axes. On the bottom axis right here, we've got the volume level of our clip. So basically this is saying, down here are the quietest parts of the clip, and up here are the loudest parts of the clip. Now, if I play this clip, you'll be able to see how that's working. Let me just play this one.
On November 5th, I'm running the New York City Marathon.
Okay, so notice how as the clip's playing, it's bouncing up and down. The loudest parts are up here, the quietest parts are down here. And then this y-axis right here, we've got, this is our actual compressor. So what this is going to do, if I take this and let's say I bring this point down just like 5 or 10 dB, like that, decibels like that. What this is doing, and I'll just bring this down to match so it's about the same. What this is doing is saying when the audio gets to this level, negative 20 dB, bring it down 10 decibels. So for the parts that are quieter, that are down here, it's hardly going to touch them. It's only barely going to bring them down. And for the parts that are really quiet, it's not going to bring them down at all. But as the track gets louder, we're going to bring the volume down more. We're going to compress it more. So that's what this point is doing. We're choosing how much we want it to bring down right at this level. And I usually go right around 5 or 10 dB. Usually does the job. Kind of at this, -20 range is great. This will change depending on, how loud or quiet you recorded your voiceover, but in general, you can just kind of feel it out. And then for this other dot over here, we're just going to choose something that kind of rounds it out like this. So basically what we're saying is, if there's any points that are like really high peaks that get really loud, we want to compress those a little bit more just to kind of keep those in check. For example, if I were to take this and make it flat, or if I were to bring it all the way down here, we'd get some really, really weird sounding effects because the parts that are really loud, it's just going to completely silence them and it's going to sound really weird. What I'm going to do first of all is I'm actually going to bring this way down just so you guys can see what this is doing. So let's do like a really dramatic compression effect on this like that. And then we're going to pay attention to what's happening. So when I bring this down, it's going to make the entire track quieter. So let's just see what happened there. In fact, I'm first going to turn this off and I'm going to see how loud the effect is.
On November 5th, I'm running the New York City Marathon.
Okay, so we're hitting right around like -24, -25. And then we'll turn this back on. And now it's like 0, okay, because you can't hear anything. So this is a pretty extreme effect. You can see how much it's compressing it. So what you want to do is when you bring this down, regardless of what level you bring it down to, then you want to bring it back up with your makeup gain. Okay, so makeup gain is down here. And because, we were at -25-ish, and now it's at, basically -60, maybe even more, we're going to add about 30 dB or 25 dB of makeup gain. That's going to bring that volume level back up. So let's see what that does.
On November 5th, I'm running the New York.
Okay, so that wasn't quite enough. So let's go to 35.
On November 5th, I'm running the New York City Marathon.
And just so we can hear it really well, I'm going to go up to 40. All right, so let's listen to that.
On November 5th, I'm running the New York City Marathon.
Okay, so did you notice how in this gap between where he's talking right here and where he's talking right here, you could hear the room tone kind of come up? That's where the quietest parts of the clip are getting louder, the loudest parts of the clip are getting quieter. And notice how this clip sounds kind of snotty. It kind of sounds, snotty is the word that they use in audio engineering. It just sounds compressed and it really starts to sound gross. That's what happens when you put way too much compression on it. I'll play it one more time so you can hear that.
On November 5th, I'm running the New York City Marathon.
But you'll notice that the clip is all a very consistent volume level. Now, we don't want to completely flatten the curve. Like, we want the waveform to still be able to breathe and feel natural, which is why we'll typically only put this about, 5 or 10 dB down. So let me put this kind of around where I would normally do it, maybe about right there. And then we're going to want to turn down this makeup gain as well. Maybe about 5 or 10 dB is all we need to make up for. So let's see.
On November 5th, I'm running the New York City Marathon to raise funds from...
Okay, and we can actually compare it with this next clip because we didn't add the effect to that one. You'll notice that one was a little bit louder, so that means that we need to come a little bit more on our makeup gain. 10 might be too much. Let's see.
New York City Marathon to raise funds for my mom and the...
Yeah, that's actually pretty good. So here's what it sounds like now.
On November 5th, I'm running the New York City Marathon to raise funds for my mom and the Brain Tumor Foundation.
Okay, so if we play that in with the rest of the mix...
On November 5th, I'm running the New York City Marathon.
So we might be able to make it even a little bit louder.
On November 5th, I'm running the New York City Marathon to raise funds for my mom. And
so you can really feel how, we didn't really make the clip that much louder. Like, we did add a little bit more makeup gain than was there before because I just kind of felt that out. But by adding that little bit of compression, you can feel it's a pretty subtle effect, but that voice is starting to pop out on top of the music and everything else going on here. If you compare it, especially, compare this clip to the second one, it sounds like this.
On November 5th, I'm running the New York City Marathon to raise funds for my mom and the Brain Tumor Foundation.
Okay, so once we've got that right, then we'll take that exact same effect. I'll go ahead and just copy it and paste it over to my other clips. And let's go ahead and play through this whole thing and hear how it sounds now.
On November 5th, I'm running the New York City Marathon to raise funds for my mom and the Brain Tumor Foundation. And I'm counting on help from athletes from around the world to join in and donate to the cause.
Okay, so there's definitely some cleanup that we could do there. There were some moments where you could kind of hear the compression, so we maybe would back it off just a tiny little bit. This is where you kind of have to trust your ear as a sound designer, just start to get a feel for how it should sound. Just try to make it sound natural. But overall, we're headed in the right direction, and that's kind of what we want to do with our compressor. So there you go. There's a quick video on how to use a compressor to make those voices sound natural and sound clear in your edit. Like I said, again, with so many sound effects and music and audio and everything going on, you really want to use this on your vocals, especially dialogue and voiceovers, to make sure that they are staying above the mix so that you can hear them clearly. Just make the overall soundscape sound